Here we are in Père Lachaise in Paris at the grave of Fred Chopin, famous composer. This week on the Gazebo show we'll be talking about music and what it's done for us lately. Welcome to the fourth episode in the first season of the Gazebo show. And this week we're talking about something else. What is it? Music? Music, yes. As in our PSA from the grave of Fred Chopin, also known as Fred Chopin to his friends.
Yeah. If music be the food of love, play on.
Okay, so music, big subject. Where do we start? I think apart from what people like and what people don't like, which is just down to taste, I think there are some objective criteria by which music can be judged. Mm-hmm. Namely, two of the metrics I would say were originality and authenticity.
Yes. Originality, authenticity. It gets harder and harder to be original after such a long line of great original artists.
Yeah.
And that's apparent when you listen to the top 40 today.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Well, the top 40, I wouldn't classify that as authentic or original.
No.
The pop music industry has always been run by 16-year-old girls, basically. They're the ones that go crazy and scream and the thing.
Yeah, but the Beatles were in the top 40. What does that say about them?
Well, they invented the pop song. I mean, so that's a little bit of a different thing. They weren't reproducing what anybody had done before. They invented the 3-minute pop song. So you got to give them credit there.
I don't know, the rock and roll sound that was around that influenced them. They didn't have 3-minute ditties that everyone was listening to on the radio.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, they were the first to kind of package that idea of here's a 3-minute song and it's a hit song. It's got a hook and it hooks you in and it sounds great and it captures the minds of a generation. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. And then of course they went on and did all kinds of amazing things. And that's the dichotomy there is that you see what they were doing with Twist and Shout and Hold Your Hands, and then you go from that to Sgt. Pepper's. My sister bought pop music, so she went out and bought the latest hits and the stuff from the radio and the stuff that was being played on top of the pop. So I got that secondhand from her. And luckily she liked a bit of soul and Motown as well. So I got exposed to that at a fairly early age. Mm-hmm. But the first record, I think one of the first records I bought was, the first 45 I ever bought were by Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders. Mm. And it was called sitting like that, man sitting on a bench. It's called That was the name of the song.
Great.
Out of the blue with his head up high, he just moaned and he'd be so kind and he'd just go diddle ding ding. Remember that one?
But I the first truly pop song that I heard, I think, was Sugar Sugar by the Archies. Remember that
right
one?
I do remember that one,
and I can still see the 45 and the label and the brightly colored label, but pure pop, that stuff.
So that's the kind of the packaged commercial pop music. Mm-hmm. So then pretty soon I was on to Bob Dylan's first album. And then from there, it went through Jimi Hendrix and The Who and Led Zeppelin and Moody Blues and Yes, and all of that, which was incredible at the time because it was a real explosion of creativity and authenticity and originality. There's nothing like that. They were all original. They were all unique.
Yeah, and there were interesting musical moments that we'll never hear again, thankfully, like Inagata Davida by Iron Butterfly. What was that, a 25-minute song? But I didn't come around to Dylan and Hendrix till I was a bit older, in my later teens. I mean, as a young teenager, I was listening to Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, right. Sprinkled with the the sort of pop music of Elton John and Cat Stevens. I remember, basically our parties when I was 13, 14, were all primarily those four musicians with maybe some Santana in there. And then every once in a while, someone would throw on some funk. And that would really get me. I'd like,
Yeah.
What's this? The way it bounced around, I mean, it was not just something straightforward. It wasn't just
Right.
4/4 blues. It was something different.
Right, and that found its way onto the pop charts in England at the time. So you'd have all these kind of pop songs, and then you'd have all the kind of the heavy, progressive rock songs and stuff like that. But you'd also have this soul music and Motown music filtering into the mix.
I was in Nigeria when James Brown toured the country, and I saw the Nigerians just go crazy for this guy. His sound, his whole, and his bass player Bootsy Collins took him down to visit Fela Kuti in the shrine in Lagos, and the two men just basically didn't. They cold shouldered each other. They didn't communicate at all. They saw each other as threats. James Brown couldn't understand what this guy was doing down in this ghetto, what
Right.
kind of music he was playing. He didn't get it. And Fela Kuti felt enormously threatened by James Brown. It was only Bootsy Collins who could hear the two of them, ringing into the future.
Yeah, that would have been something to see James Brown in his heyday, in like early
In
70s
an African
or
country.
whatever.
The flip side in Africa was that we didn't get albums. We didn't. I mean, it was people coming back from
You couldn't
home.
buy them.
You couldn't buy them. You go down. There was a record store run by this Indian guy, but the closest you could get to the pop music that was being played in Europe were these records that had replica bands doing the songs, so they
Right.
could get around, I don't know, some copyright issues.
Copyright, yeah.
And they were all, the covers of them were all like some saucy bird in hot pants and
Right.
done up like a bag of chips, and that's how that was the high end of the pop that we
Yeah, I think I've
we
seen
had
some of
available
those.
to us.
I remember going down to Brighton, and I lived in Crawley, so I'd travel down to Brighton at the weekends to have fun. And I remember the first Virgin store was a record store on the corner near the clock tower, and it was this big place, and there were all these mattresses on the ground, and you could lay on the mattresses and listen to headphones, and you could just go up and ask for anything you want, they'd play it for you. And then you could listen to it, see if you liked it.
Yeah.
And that was really revolutionary at the time. So what about the state of music today?
The state of music today, I don't know. I mean, I don't listen to what's coming out, except maybe when I'm in the car and listening to the radio, and it's just like
Well, I
I
was intrigued by the Taylor Swift phenomenon because, it's getting huge crowds and making loads of money, and right? So something's going on, right? So I looked at the Eras Tour concert film,
Yeah.
and I watched, well, as much of it as I could. I watched the first parts of the songs, and then it's just, pop song, pop song, pop song till the end. So I was kind of fast forwarded through some of it. But I was expecting to find something there, and really it's just the same vacuous pop songs that have been written for the last 40 years, basically.
Right.
There was nothing new about it, nothing new to say, nothing new musically. And so, I don't know, I thought that was but it bodes ill for the future of the music industry. If that's the pinnacle of the music industry, then I think we've lost the plot.
Well, there's always been, popular artists around. I mean, look at the Mozart Salieri story. One was all he wanted to be was famous, but he didn't.
Right.
He lacked the talent, and the other was just so blessed with talent it was ridiculous. Didn't know what to do with it. I think that happens a lot, and it's happened through the ages. And there are periods when music flourishes, and like art or literature and the other things we've talked about. There are periods when they're at their peak, and then afterwards they kind of trail off. But I think that's happened in history time and time again, and the trailing off is just a trough leading to another peak.
And I'll be ever alert for that event. But I just think that the venues look at Victoria, look at the live music venues. There's virtually nothing now.
Yeah,
There's
but
nothing left. There used to be live music in every coffee house and every restaurant, and then there used to be like concert bars and stuff like that. But you don't see that anymore.
Well, they have festivals, music festivals over the
Music
they had them
festivals,
here over
yeah.
the summer. I heard some bands playing over just in the park near here.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at the death of art and culture. I think you'll have to agree. Anyway, let's go to recipe of the week.
For the record, I don't agree, but carry on.
There's another recipe of the week
From the Ville.
This is the voice of the Ville once again for these innovative recipes from the Pentonville prison in the UK. There's one of my favorites. This one's called, so a bang up recipe. This one's called tuna and bean salad. Now listen carefully because this is quite complicated. Get your pencil out.
Complicated recipe.
Okay, open the tin of tuna and drain half the oil out.
Oh.
Right? When you've done that, open the tin of kidney beans and mix it in.
Yeah, and they laugh, aren't they?
No, that's a real recipe.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that you can publish anything these days.
That's right.
Which leads me to my collection of books that I...
There we go. Tell us about your collection of books, Billy.
Gorilla Land. I wrote this in
the land of gorillas.
I started in 2007. It was published in 2012. So it took me 5 years to get this off the ground. But it was my baby, full of errors and flaws, but I love it. And it's quite a romp. And then I dove straight into this one, Pirates, which is another fictional adventure set in Africa. This one in the Somali Peninsula. And both feature a character called Derek Windermark. And his adventures are pretty thrilling, I would say. But now I've switched, as I mentioned last week, to writing memoirs. And my latest one is about my time saving gorillas. But you notice the theme, Africa, gorillas? Yep, that's me.
Yeah, it's a definite theme there. Whereas my theme seems to be drugs. There's a book about drugs in the rave scene. There's a book about drugs, and this is a book about somebody who's killing himself for drugs.
Yeah, well.
And now it's time for Logical Fallacy of the Week.
Logical Fallacy of the Week.
Logical fallacy, as we know, is a flawed argument that leads from a premise to a conclusion. This one's called the Nirvana fallacy. Not anything to do with the grunge band.
Okay.
Which is probably a different fallacy. Familiar phrase that captures the essence of the Nirvana fallacy is the perfect is the enemy of the good. Essentially, this style of argument starts with the premise that something is not perfect and concludes that it's therefore worthless. Vaccines don't work 100% of the time, therefore they're not useful. Science is flawed, therefore we don't really know anything, etc., etc. The Nirvana fallacy.
That's a pretty popular one at the moment, the Nirvana fallacy. People are gripped by that.
Yeah, if there's a slight flaw in something, then they'll just attack it and they'll just disregard the entire history of medical science because one doctor made a mistake or something.
But getting back to music, personally, music really matters to me. I mean, I have been on what I would consider a musical journey. I knew I lacked the talent to become a musician myself. I probably would have been a pretty good producer because I had a good ear. But in the 6 decades I've been listening to music and collecting it, not all 6 decades obviously, but I have continued to expand my musical palette, what I like and what I listen to, what I'm trying to hear, and I've discovered things that are 30, 40, 50 years old recently, but primarily I'm looking for what is there in the last 30 years that's worth listening to. A lot of it's electronic, a lot of it is mood. It's hard to find bands that really are speaking to you. There are a few, Gorillaz, for instance, back to my Gorilla theme. I think they're a fantastic band, Gorillaz. They have quite a remarkable chromatic range of styles. And I watched a whole performance they did at Glastonbury in 2010. It was on YouTube. Check it out, kids. Amazing. An hour and 40 minutes of them performing. And they brought out Lou Reed. who came out with them, and then Snoop Dogg in the end. Because he's on all these songs, and it's this eclectic collection of sort of postmodern pastiches that get thrown together into a funky groove that you can dance to, and that's probably the best we're going to get at the moment.
Okay. So I'm a bit of a musician myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I have 6 albums and 25 music videos on jimmyfritz.ca. That's jimmyfritz.ca.
Your one-stop shop for everything Jimi Fritz.
Everything Jimi Fritz. And that's about it for another
Seems
show
like a good
of
wrap-
the
good time to
Gazebo
wrap it
show.
up.
Good time to wrap it up. Don't forget to like and subscribe,
We need
or
you.
else.
We need you. Let's get this thing going viral.
Let's go viral, people.
Yeah.
Come on, hit the button.
One love.